Yes, the first of its kind in the Philippines and also in the world. But before we proceed, on behalf of IJM, I'd like to thank our event partners, Kumu and Sofitel Manila, for co-hosting today's launch of the study results. We are grateful for this lovely, lovely venue and all the support you've extended to IJM to make this in-person launch possible. So again, can we give Kumu and Sofitel a round of applause, please? Thank you.
Speaking of support, thanks to Kumu, today's event is also being streamed live for partners and IJM staff who cannot join us here at the in-person launch because of the limited number of guests that we can accommodate.
Yeah, so I'd like to say hello to our online participants. So thank you for joining us and for tuning in this afternoon.
To officially kick off today's event, let's hear some opening remarks from Attorney Samson Inocencio, Regional Vice President and National Director of IJM's program against the online sexual exploitation
Philippines. Work that's already put into addressing this crime by the Philippine government, our other stakeholders. The call is very clear. There's more work to be done to ensure greater protection for our children. So we believe that strengthening justice systems to enforce the law deters criminals and protects people from violence. We saw this proven in full from our work against child sex trafficking in brothels, bars, and other commercial sex establishments and streets. So we partnered with the Philippine government to execute a justice system enhancement model to effectively address this crime. And as a result, the Philippine justice system worked diligently to increase its efforts in law enforcement, prosecution, and aftercare capacity, leading to this outcome. Dramatic prevalence reductions of 72% in Metro Cebu, 75% in Metro Manila, and 86% in Pampanga. And the Philippine government, alongside IJM and other partners, proved that a robust justice system response protects children. We have proven that effective law enforcement as part of a robust justice system response and with the support of an enabling environment in the community deters human traffickers from exploiting our children. So in 2016, and understanding on online sexual exploitation of children in the Philippines. Yet the national prevalence estimate remained elusive. But over time, as our experience and partnerships grew, so did our knowledge and ability to estimate the prevalence of trafficking to produce child sexual exploitation material, including live streaming. And so this is where the scale of harm study began. The scale of harm project was launched in March of 2021 by IGEM Center to End Online Sexual Exploitation of Children with the University of Nottingham Rights Lab. And so throughout this presentation, you will hear about the prevalence of a specific subset of online sexual abuse and exploitation of children, the trafficking of children to produce new child sexual exploitation materials, or CSEM, CSEM. Recognizing the urgent need to measure national prevalence, IGEM partnered with the University of Nottingham Rights Lab, which is the world's leading and largest group of modern slavery researchers. Additionally, we formed an external advisory council, which elevated the credibility and thoroughness of our research. We also invited and partnered with the Philippine survivor leaders as consultants throughout the project. And together, we employed a rigorous and comprehensive methodology developed through a robust process. So now the scale of harm study not national prevalence of live-streamed child sexual abuse, but also helps to empower the Philippine government, the global community, even us, all of us here, including IJM, to enhance our response so that we can protect more vulnerable children from this violence. And this study highlights that through our collaborative efforts, we are having and will continue.
Hey, Sam, we are indeed grateful to the Philippine government for putting OSAIC high on their priority list. You know, I didn't know anything about this crime a few years ago. I actually learned about it in Singapore and not here. And so I always say, once I learned about this atrocious crime, I couldn't unknow. Once you know, you can't unknow.
And kudos to you, Amanda, for being one of the early advocates and influencers who stepped up to raise awareness about this crime. I know you've been involved in several awareness campaigns over the past few years, so thank you for doing that as well.
Well, you're welcome, but I do believe that each one of us has a role to play, and I do feel fortunate that I found IJM as a partner to work in protecting vulnerable children, because together we are stronger. So I'm pleased that we are all here together in one place to gain a better understanding of the magnitude of this crime and to put our heads together for effective ways to combat it moving forward.
Absolutely. And now let's provide our guests with a quick overview of what to expect this afternoon. So we have just heard the opening remarks from Attorney Sam. Next, we will delve into the study's objectives and methodology, followed by a discussion of the findings and recommendations.
Following that, we will hold a panel discussion featuring some of our esteemed partners from both government and private sectors. After that, we will have a Q&A session.
Yes, and to manage our limited time, we would like to ask our guests to write down any questions you may have as presentations progress. You will find pens and paper available on your tables for this purpose. We will have individuals collecting your questions in preparation for the Q&A session, and after the Q&A session, we will listen to the response from a survivor leader and from Executive Director Kit Magsaysay on behalf of the DOJ and the Philippine government. And then finally, there will be a time for refreshments and interactions.
Without further delay, to present the study's objectives and methodologies, I would like to invite members of IJM Project's core team onto the stage, Dr. Imogen Fell, the center's head of program management.
So Dr. Imogen Fell has family in the Philippines, and she has lived here and done research here as well. Also joining her are Christine Bel Torres, senior researcher and survivor consultant Ruby. So to our online participants, we will not be showing Ruby, because Ruby wants to keep her identity confidential. So we also ask our in-person participants to kindly refrain from taking and sharing photos or videos of Ruby. Thank you.
Thank you. Scale of harm's innovative methodology and national prevalence estimates break new ground in child protection research and interventions. Catalyzed by the valuable learnings from IGM's 2020 OSAIC study, the team set to work. This was a full collaborative effort led by an IGM research team from the Center to End Online Sexual Exploitation of Children and IGM Philippines. We were joined by 3 survivor consultants as part of the core team, and IGM also partnered with the largest group of modern slavery researchers from the University of Nottingham Rights Lab. This collaborative group helped to develop the prevalence methodology in 2021 and then implement the prevalence study in 2022. In 2021, to develop the robust mixed method research approach, we formed an external advisory council made up of 24 experts from tech, financial, law enforcement, Philippine government agencies, the academe, and NGOs. Their partnership and collaboration offered Scale of Harm unique and diverse perspectives and expertise, adopting a multi-sector partnership approach to methodology development and implementation, which demonstrates a significant learning for future collaborative projects involving civil society, academia, and the private sector. Many of these partners have provided their reflections in the Scale of Harm report and are supporting the study launch. The study's findings provide crucial insights for policymakers, for law enforcement, and other organizations working to combat this terrible crime against children. We hope it will catalyze an even stronger response, more effective global response to protect more children. Before we discuss the findings, it is important to understand why and how IGM did the study. Scale of Harm measured the prevalence of the trafficking of children to produce new child sexual exploitation material. In simple terms, this is the in-person sexual abuse of children by adults in the Philippines to create and sell images, videos, and live streams for paying demand-side offenders globally. It is a financially motivated crime for these adults in the Philippines, and in IGM's casework experience, the children are used sexually, usually sexually abused in violent and degrading ways. The project had 2 central research objectives. First, to estimate the number of children trafficked for CSAM production and the number of traffickers in the Philippines in 2022. And secondly, to design, develop, and test a survey that IGM can replicate to estimate national prevalence over time. To calculate national prevalence, we conducted a household survey using the network scale-up method, or NSUM, with the inclusion of IGM casework data, and a team of 3 survivor consultants who were part of the core team led survivor engagement by leading focus group discussions where Philippine Survivor Network members provided valuable lived experience perspectives.
Thank you, Imogen. Alongside Scale of Harm survivor engagement piece to estimate national prevalence in the Philippines, household surveys that use the network scale-up method, or as we call it, NSUM, were employed as per the developed methodology. So from November to December 2022, 3,600 surveys across 150 municipalities were conducted survey fieldwork for the study. Here you can see that depicted in the map, the municipalities and cities we surveyed throughout the Philippines. The National Household Survey used NSUM approach to calculate national prevalence by estimating the number of victims and traffickers by asking about the behaviors of people the survey respondent knew. This approach was effective for estimating prevalence because this crime is known as an open secret in local communities here in the Philippines. The network scale-up method, or NSUM, is widely accepted to estimate prevalence for hidden populations and promoted by organizations like the Global Fund to End Modern Slavery. To successfully achieve a prevalence estimate, among other questions on the survey, we also asked the following. First, we asked how many children the respondents knew were used or forced by an adult to produce sexually explicit videos, photos, or live streams. And then we also asked how many adults the respondents knew were involved in selling sexually explicit videos, photos, or live streams of children. Along with the National Household Survey, IJM's extensive casework data from the past 7 years was used to estimate and determine the national prevalence where survey locations intersected as well with our casework data. So this included determining as well the ratio of traffickers to child victims. And today, we have the immense privilege of hearing directly from one of those survivor consultants on what survivor engagement looked like for scale of harm study. I invite you to please give Ruby your full attention. And as a reminder again, there is no photography or recording allowed during this section to keep Ruby's identity confidential. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ate Christine. Hello, everyone. My name is Ruby. I was a survivor leader since 2015, but I became a survivor consultant with IJM Center 2 and OSEC last July 2022, and worked with other 2 survivor consultants throughout the Scale of Harm project. So we provided feedback. We did this in 2 main ways. First, we provided feedback and recommendations. We also co-designed and advised on the research and survey designs. Secondly, we co-designed and led 2 focus group discussions. These focus group discussions were done with a group of online sexual exploitation survivors from the Philippine Survivor Network. Here are more specifics of how we helped with the study. First, my 2 fellow survivor consultants and I helped design the structure, language, and implementation of the research. And then 6 survivor leaders participated in 2 focus group discussions to provide lived experience perspectives. Here, we led and facilitated these discussions to enhance the study's understanding of how people with lived experience understood, thought, and felt about current efforts to address trafficking of children. And then all survivors then reviewed and shared insights into the survey results. Through our insights, my fellow survivor consultants and I informed the calculation of the national prevalence of victims and traffickers. Finally, we also shared recommendations on using the survey findings to bring positive impact to those in the Philippines to protect more children from exploitation. We wanted to help communicate the study results back to the communities that can help prevent this form of child exploitation in the future. The 2 focus group discussions played a big part in contributing our experiences and perspectives. Here were our specific goals for the focus group discussions. First, we wanted to understand how trafficking and online child sexual exploitation are understood by people in the Philippines. Here, we were asked if adults would know about this kind of trafficking, and also if we knew of other members of the community who might have information about it. Second, we wanted to make sure that the research was culturally sensitive and done in a way that was in the best interest of people in the Philippines. This included assisting with ethical protocols for the survey. Third, we wanted to comment on the data captured in the household survey. And lastly, we wanted to use all of this information to assist in the creation of the methodology and the calculation of prevalence. The first focus group discussions focused on orienting the survivor participants on the topics covered in the Scale of Harm project. There were various themes from the focus group discussions, but I wanted to highlight a few key terms. First, awareness and understanding in the Philippines varies when it comes to adults sexually abusing children to sell live streams, images, and videos. In the focus group discussions, we spoke of how we felt that not everyone understood the forced nature of this exploitation. There is still work needed to educate and build people's understanding about issues connected to live streamed child sexual abuse. We recognize that some issues connected to live streamed child sexual abuse and people who are aware of the problem are still not willing to discuss it with others, including the police. But on the other hand, social media and technology could be useful tools to help start these conversations. There is a lack of understanding about how online behaviors constitute exploitation. Online behaviors linked to children being abused and victimized online are often normalized for young Filipinos. While scale of harm focused on estimating the prevalence for future studies, we proposed adding research questions about behaviors associated with trafficking. For example, seeking relationship for financial gain. And then trafficking to produce child sexual exploitation materials is seen as a way to earn a lot of money. Poverty is a key risk factor, but financial gain or motivation is really what drives traffickers to engage in online sexual exploitation, not economic desperation. We discussed how this abuse can happen anywhere as long as there is a room or a dark place with good internet connection and any phone or computer with live streaming or live video apps. Technology makes it easy for foreign sex offenders to ask for and access new child exploitation materials, especially in live video. The second focus group discussion focused on the survey results. We also asked the survivors' perspectives and listened to their clarifications on unexpected findings. Here are the key themes from the second focus group discussions. So first, we discussed how the traffickers are the victims' relatives or people they know. This sad reality makes the crime even more heartbreaking. And we all agreed that not everyone surveyed would likely be aware of the specific technical terms of trafficking to produce child sexual exploitation materials. This is because many different terms are used locally to refer to this type of exploitation, including terms that minimize the harm to children. So for example, people do not use the term osaek in casual conversations. So these are very technical terms, while locals use Filipino slang such as show, cybersex, and even the common term internet. So for example, people would say, we are doing a show, or we are using the internet. We are so grateful for the opportunity to use our lived experience to enhance people's understanding. For us, this is not just a study, but a description of real-life experience and events that have happened to us and to real people in our cities, neighborhoods, and families. I am not just honored to be part of this project, but I also consider this as a chance to represent other survivor leaders. I wanted to be an encouragement to them that our past cannot limit the things that we can achieve or accomplish. And the alarming numbers from the result was like a recognition, the drive within me to continue doing my part in doing advocacy-related works. We would like to thank the Rights Lab and IJM for inviting us to join this important study. The researchers took the time to hear from us and ask our feedback and advise those with lived experience on this. So we hope that this information will encourage you to keep up the fight to protect more children. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ruby. Thank you also to Imogen and Christine for guiding us through the methodology.
One of the aspects I find most impressive about the methodology development is the active involvement of survivors in shaping the study. I've collaborated with Ruby on a number of campaigns, and I'm truly inspired by her dedication of using her own experiences to ensure that future generations won't have to endure what she went through. With Ruby and other survivors offering their insights and firsthand experiences, I believe the study was in incredibly capable hands.
Precisely, and we don't hear a lot of trafficking studies that are co-designed by survivors themselves. Well, I'm sure our guests are very eager to know about the study results. So I'd like to call on stage now John Tanego, Executive Director of IJM Center to End Online Sexual Exploitation of Children, to guide us through this segment.
Thank you, Attorney Ralph. Well, it's the highlight of my professional career to live and work in the Philippines for 7 years to combat online exploitation of children. And as a father of 3 children, it's my privilege to hold hands and lock arms with many of you in this room today to protect children from this crime and ensure that those who abuse them are held accountable under the law. You've heard that as early as 2011, the Philippine government, in collaboration with IJM and many other stakeholders, began actively combating online sexual exploitation of children. We have seen multi-stakeholder efforts, including from many of you, result in significant progress in law enforcement, trauma-informed survivor aftercare, child protective prosecutions, improved legislation, international law enforcement and truly at IJM we applaud the excellent work of all of these stakeholders in government, non-government, foreign law enforcement partners, and the private sector who have persevered to combat this crime. Yet the main findings that I'm about to share with you make it crystal clear that there is so much work for all of us to do. The work remains to be done here in the Philippines and also globally, including in demand-side countries. I want to situate the scale of harm findings in one case, the story of one victim who's now a survivor. You see, there are just some words that should never go together in a sentence. Live-streamed child sexual abuse. Child sexual exploitation material. Even if those in the community would call it show or cybersex, we who work against this crime know how dark this really is. Every one of us has been a child. We know how vulnerable children are, especially young children. Children like Jolene. She's like many 6-year-olds. She lives with her mom in a small house. She loves cake and wearing dresses. And like many 6-year-olds today, she has spent much of her life behind a mask to protect her from COVID. But while being behind a mask protected her health, being placed in front of a camera took it away. You see, Jolene was not safe. Not at home, not with her mom, not with her mom's boyfriend, and not in the sexual abuse videos and photos that were sold online to men around the world hungry to consume her abuse. But Jolene is just one of the nearly 500,000 Filipino children sexually abused and exploited by adults to create images, videos, and live streams for sale to offenders around the world. And that is the main victim finding of scale of harm. Nearly 500,000 children in the Philippines were trafficked to produce new child sexual exploitation material in 2022 alone. That is 1 in every 100 Filipino children. Now, we know that is alarming. When I first heard this, I had a strong emotional response, and I have had many since then. We at IJM and all of our partners are heartbroken at the reality of not just this number, but the children who are represented in this number. And we continue to work for scalable and sustainable solutions, multi-sector solutions that would really reduce this prevalence over time and protect children from this harm. But at the same time, we can be encouraged and have hope. Now, while the national prevalence was not measured before multi-stakeholder efforts from the Philippine government, from foreign law enforcement, from IJM and other organizations, it is likely that the prevalence would be even higher today if it wasn't for all of those early interventions from so many stakeholders working to protect children. We are confident that together we are having an impact to protect children from this crime. And we know that we can reduce this prevalence in coming years. Now, the second main finding of scale of harm is that nearly 250,000 adult Filipinos traffic children to produce new child sexual exploitation material in 2022. This is 3 in every 1,000 adult Filipinos. It can be hard to wrap our minds around these large numbers and what they mean. For those who are working closely within the justice system, we know that there is a significant disparity between these prevalence estimates and the number of victims who have been brought to safety or the number of suspects who have been arrested. And that's why, from our next speaker, Attorney Sam, you will hear our recommendations, including intensifying law enforcement efforts to hold more traffickers accountable so that we can create a deterrence for this crime in the community while also bringing many more children to safety. Our hope is that this newfound understanding of the scale of harm would catalyze a greater, stronger, and more effective global response to this crime. Locally, nationally, from the tech and financial sector, and from demand-side governments. Now, there are a few more findings that I want to share with you. As Ruby said, scale of harm confirmed that traffickers are often relatives or other people known to the victims. These are the very people meant to protect these children. They're often the ones who are exploiting them. And based on casework data, the trafficker to victim ratio is 1 trafficker for every 3.5 child victims. Survivor focus groups revealed that traffickers conceal their activity by using falsified details online and selecting physical locations that are quiet and unlikely to be disturbed. According to survivors, more work is needed to be done in the community to educate and build understanding on the specific issues linked to online exploitation of children, and to sensitize the community to the harm from this crime and strengthen interventions against it. Additionally, Scale of Harm survey found that the trafficking to produce child sexual exploitation material is happening across the Philippines in Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. This is a crime that every region, every city and municipality must confront. These are not just numbers. These are our children. The Scale of Harm study is about these children who are being abused today and how together we must do everything in our power to protect them. Thank you.
Thank you, John. I'd been briefed about the key findings before today,
Scale of Harm Study's key recommendations, I'd like to call back on stage Attorney Sam Inocencio, Regional Vice President of IJM's Program Against Online Sexual Exploitation of Children and National Director of IJM Philippines.
Thank you. We are now at a crucial part of our program, the recommendations. Well, take courage. There are very specific things that can be done by the people in this room to decrease this crime. The scale of harm findings highlight the ongoing need for sustained and strengthened action to combat online sexual exploitation of children in the Philippines and beyond. And based on the study's findings, here are the key recommendations. Recommendation number 1, cultivate community-based reporting. Government, nonprofit organizations, community leaders, local government unit officials, and the public should cultivate increased reporting from the community and support efforts to deter traffickers. The scale of harm findings show that trafficking to produce CSEM is widespread across the Philippines and underreported by the community. This scale, coupled with the hidden nature of the abuse, the young age of the victims, the role of family perpetrators, and the social and cultural factors such as not meddling in the affairs of others, necessitates increased community-based reporting. Community leaders and local government units should seek to debunk the myths that live streaming the sexual abuse of children or selling new CSEM photos and videos is quote-unquote family matter, or an acceptable way to earn money, or that reporting is inappropriate. Survivors recommended additional capacity building among local officials to effectively prioritize and address cases of trafficking to produce CSEM, including via live streaming. There is a need to provide technical support to local governments and civil society to strengthen community-based mechanisms for identifying and preventing online sexual exploitation of children. Community watch groups can be organized and trained, and community-based monitoring systems can be established. Barangay councils for the protection of children, or BCPCs, can be given technical assistance to strengthen their systems for collecting and reporting data on online sexual exploitation of children to the mandated police units. Recommendation number 2, enhance the criminal justice response. Alongside increased community-based reports, Philippine law enforcement efforts at the national, regional, and local levels should intensify to apprehend and prosecute more traffickers, thereby creating deterrence while safeguarding victims. Further, demand-side law enforcement should hold accountable more demand-side offenders. Philippine law enforcement actions against trafficking to produce child sexual exploitation material are commendable, given limitations in staffing and resources. But Philippine law enforcement can still intensify their enforcement interventions. The Philippine government can evaluate potential institutional, staffing, or budget enhancements to expedite effective investigations, increase arrests of suspected traffickers, and bring more victims to safety. For instance, the Philippine National Police Women and Children Protection Center, or the PNP Women WCPC, can become a national operating support unit. And hence, it would have greater budget, staffing, and resources to combat this crime nationally, in line with its mandate and in coordination with local police units. Similarly, the National Bureau of Investigation Anti-Human Trafficking Division, or NBI-ATRAD, is tasked with investigating trafficking of children to produce CSEM offenses across the Philippines, but remains a small team with personnel only in Metro Manila. expanding the capability of NBI ATRAD and regional NBI offices to respond to these cases through increased personnel, funding, equipment will result in more arrests and more victims brought to safety, creating greater deterrence and relieving children of ongoing abuse. Now, demand-side governments, including the US, UK, Australia, Canada, Germany, France, the Netherlands, and other European nations, from where offenders fuel trafficking to produce CSEM, should also intensify their efforts to identify, arrest, and hold more offenders accountable. Accountability includes ensuring offenders receive a prison sentence commensurate to the harm they caused and pay restitution or compensation to Filipino survivors, supporting survivor recovery. There is a scarcity of data on the number of arrests, prosecutions, and restitution orders for offenders who create demand for this crime. Yet, those cases will not only lead to accountability for demand-side offenders, but when shared as referrals with Philippine law enforcement, can support investigations, victim safeguarding, and trafficker identification. Continued close international law enforcement collaboration with the Philippine Internet Crimes Against Children Center, or the PICAC, will thus significantly support increased enforcement operations. As of August 2023, PICAC has supported the arrest of 131 suspects and safeguarded 644 victims and at-risk individuals. So we applaud the work of foreign law enforcement partners in the Philippines, in collaboration, of course, with our local law enforcement for embracing this global fight. Recommendation number 3, implement robust community-based efforts. Alongside increased law enforcement interventions, additional local efforts to prevent, frustrate, and disrupt the trafficking of children to produce child sexual exploitation materials should be deployed through robust community-based norms change and sensitization. Community sensitization through survivor leadership and advocacy can accelerate norms change, leading to local deterrence. Survivor leaders can highlight the devastating harm to victims from online sexual exploitation, raise awareness, and create a sense of urgency in our communities. More local government units should pass local anti-OSAEC ordinances to embed resources and prioritization at the local level, signaling to perpetrators that their days of impunity are over and offending carries enforcement risks. So as of July this year, 15 LGUs in the Philippines have passed ordinances localizing the anti-OSAEC law, but every LGU should do likewise, and IGEM is here to support. Recommendation number 4, enforce anti-OSAEC law tech provisions. The Philippine government should enforce, and if needed, enhance regulations mandating the use of safety by design technology designed to detect, prevent, and disrupt the production and distribution of live-streamed sexual abuse and other child sexual exploitation material, images, and videos at scale. Critical safeguards and preventative technologies should be integrated into live video apps and platforms to prevent the production of new child sexual exploitation material. The sheer scale of live-streamed child sexual abuse in the Philippines necessitates such technological prevention in video chat apps and platforms on which child sexual abuse is produced and transmitted live. Fortunately, sophisticated safety technology trained on Internet Watch Foundation data already exists that can detect and prevent streaming of child sexual abuse, such as Safe to Watch. The Philippine Survivor Network has publicly called for the tech sector to use such technology. The Philippine government should therefore ensure robust enforcement of and compliance with the new anti-OSAIC law provisions requiring tech companies to install mechanisms or measures designed to prevent, detect, respond, or report child sexual abuse and exploitation material, and install available technology, programs, or software to ensure that access to or streaming of violations of this act will be removed, blocked, or filtered. That's under Republic Act 11930. Companies operating in the Philippines should be required to report to the Philippine government their compliance with this provision, considering the alarming scale of live-streamed child sexual abuse of Filipino children. And IJM is prepared to support such efforts and make introductions to relevant safety technology companies. The tech sector should also improve timely detection, reporting, and deterrence of new or first-generation child sexual exploitation images and recorded videos, and suspected trafficking to produce CSEM to facilitate swift action to safeguard victims and apprehend suspects. And IJM is again prepared to support such efforts by providing our updated 2023 product called Tech and Financial Sector Indicators of Live Streaming Online Sexual Exploitation of Children to interested companies, along with related consultation. Recommendation number 5. Expedite detection, reporting, and blocking of suspicious financial transactions. Banks and money service businesses must act with urgency to implement effective transaction monitoring to detect suspicious payments indicative of online sexual abuse and exploitation of children. Apply enhanced due diligence if suspicions exist. Expedite suspicious reporting and block payments involving known or suspected offenders and traffickers. As we all know, trafficking to produce CSEM is a commercial crime. Without payment, there is no incentive for criminals to abuse children. Survivor leaders shared that traffickers usually receive money through money service businesses in their local communities and assign a household member with a valid ID card to collect in cash the payment sent by foreign offenders before abuse is committed and streamed online. So in light of the prevalence of this financially motivated abuse of children, Philippine money service businesses, principally remittance companies, should improve transaction monitoring capability to identify payments indicative of OSAIC. Moreover, banks and money service businesses should treat suspicious child exploitation payments like terrorist financing or fraud by striving to detect and report within 5 days of activity, not the current 50 to 100 days typical of anti-money laundering reporting. Beyond expedited reporting, banks and remittance companies should agree with regulator protocols for the delay or even blocking of suspicious payments. So if there are any suspicions, money service businesses should apply greater scrutiny to the transaction before releasing payment. Such enhanced due diligence could include seeking additional information substantiating the relationship between the party sending the money and the person collecting the payment. And such simple questions can act as a deterrent without creating a burden for legal payments. And finally, establishing and strengthening cooperation among the financial sector, AMLC as the Financial Intelligence Unit, and law enforcement will support timely sharing of actionable intelligence to aid law enforcement. Active collaboration between AMLC and Philippine and foreign law enforcement can maximize the usefulness of intelligence to support investigations leading to children brought to safety and offenders restrained. And last but not the least, recommendation number 6, governments globally must urgently pass online safety legislation with survivor consultation. Online safety legislation can facilitate the protection of children from sexual abuse and exploitation online, including abuse streamed in video calls and other CSEM production. It can require tech companies to detect, report, and remove child abuse material online, including new or first-generation CSEM. While individual companies have made promising commitments by design that prevent harm along with proactive detection, reporting, and removal of child sexual abuse. Lawmakers in the US, UK, European Union should courageously seize the moment to pass substantial online safety legislation, increasing protections for children and transparency by tech companies in developing technology safe by design. Survivors from the Philippine Survivor Network are advocating for the passage of these bills, writing letters and speaking directly to foreign governments about their lived experiences and how these laws could significantly reduce and prevent traumatic abuse. Legislation informed by survivor consultation and expertise can more comprehensively meet the safety needs of children, and the scale of harm reminds us all why these laws are urgently needed. So now, friends, it is abundantly clear that this is a global crime which requires a global solution. It requires a whole of society approach to ensure that children are no longer victims of this atrocious crime. So I hope that the objectives and methodologies, as well as the findings and recommendations, have been helpful in your understanding of the importance of this study to our fight here in the Philippines. Maraming salamat po.
Well, thank you very much, Attorney Sam. There is indeed work cut out for all of us. But the good thing is nobody is working alone to combat the trafficking of children to produce CSEM, so we need to continue working together.
Exactly. Collaboration is key to protecting children from this crime. And I really appreciate all the recommendations. And what really resonated with me was the need to increase community reports of this crime. And as you've mentioned before, I've led and supported awareness campaigns over the past few years, and we need to continue that momentum.
Agreed. Just a quick housekeeping reminder. I hope you have written down some of your questions already because our colleagues will be ready to collect them in a little bit. To further put context into the findings and recommendations we've just heard, we will now transition into a panel discussion. So facilitating this session are Attorney Reynaldo Bicol, Director of IJM Manila, and Attorney Lucille Dejito, Director of IJM Cebu.
They will be joined by our esteemed panelists, Attorney Margarita Magsaysay, representing the Interagency Council Against Trafficking at the Department of Justice of the Philippines, Police Colonel Portia Manalad, Chief of the Women and Children Protection Center of the Philippine National Police.
And also joining the panel are Mr. Angel Redoble, Chief Information Security Officer of PLDT SMART, Mr. Eric Favila, AM Lakas founder and CEO, and our event co-organizer from Kumu, Ms. Ari Kaderku, Kumu Chief Operating Officer. The floor is yours, Attorney Ray and Attorney Lucille.
And may I request our good afternoon. After hearing the highlights of the findings and the recommendations of our study, it is really clear as to how urgent this issue is, how clear and compelling this issue is. And that gives us more reason to lean in and know more about what else can be done to combat this particular crime. And so this afternoon, I am joined in by my colleague, Attorney Ray, to help facilitate this discussion together with our great panel this afternoon.
Thank you, Attorney Lucille, and we're really excited to dive into the scale of harm findings and know how can we respond to this crime effectively and collaboratively. So I'm Attorney Ray Bicol. I'm the Director of IJM Manila, and it's really an honor for us to facilitate this panel discussion. And a warm welcome to our panelists. Wonderful afternoon, and thank you for joining us today.
Colonel Portia, of course, Attorney Kit, Ari, Eric, and Sir Angel. So great to have all of you this afternoon. And just to help us manage our time, especially as the discussion goes on, we will give our panelists 2 minutes to respond to the question. And you will hear a sound as a gentle reminder that you are towards the end of your allocated time to respond. All right, so let's dive right into our questions. And my first question is actually for Attorney Kit. So that's the sound. Attorney Kit, after hearing the study, what about the study that stood out to you? And we want also to know your initial reaction on that particular point or insight.
I think what stood out with me is the community-based reporting, because I've talked with a lot of other officials also who are involved, have been involved in OSAI cases, and they were saying that the root cause really of the low reporting is because of the social behavior of Filipinos. Our traditions and norms prevent us from doing the reporting. For instance, we don't want to see our parents go to prison. We always think as kids that the reason why our parents are sent off to prison is that because it's our fault. So unless there is mediation and then there is an understanding to the children that, or there is some sort of explanation by the parents that, okay, this is what happened, it's because of, this is the things that we are doing to you, then the children will be able to understand that this is not their fault. So maybe it's also the traditions and norms of the Filipinos that prevent them from doing so. I think Attorney Sam also mentioned that we don't want to pry on on our noses on other people's business, because we also don't want them to pry on ours. So I think it all starts with that, just changing the social behavior norms of the Filipinos, so that there's a more accurate reporting of the OSAI incidents that are really being committed in the Philippines.
Those are really wonderful insights, Attorney Kit, and truly, yeah, there should be a greater community engagement towards changing the social behavior and norms in the community to really achieve that greater protection of children. Now, I'd like to go to Mr. Eric. How about you? What caught your attention in the study, and what was your reaction to that section of the study?
Thank you. For me, the most startling piece is really the headline of this entire study, where we have 500,000 children exploited just in 2022. Now, that number on its own is staggering, but I lined that up against what the AMLC had reported last April about how many STRs were reported in 2022 related to OSEC. We're talking around 90,000. So just the disparity there gives me the sense that the financial services sector has a lot more to do, both on the regulatory side and the private sector side. If we consider every transaction to be an instance of abuse, right, that's 500 times however many times payments were made. We're clearly not doing enough on the payment side, and I really hope more can be done.
That alone speaks about, again, the urgency of this issue. And I was looking at some of the members in the audience. Some of them are nodding in affirmation, just the scale of how this abuse is happening. And like you said, Attorney Kit, even the behavior and the societal norms has something to do to enable why this type of abuse are happening or easier to commit. Now I'll turn to Colonel Manalad, Colonel Portia. As early as 2011, the Philippine government, especially the Philippine law enforcement, has already been working on cases of online sexual exploitation of children, just investigating them and also bringing children, bringing victims to safety, holding perpetrators accountable. Since then, it was a momentous progress. So thank you so much for the incredible work that the Philippine law enforcement is doing. We want to know, what were the barriers and challenges that you've encountered in combating this crime? And also, we are keen to hear some of the learnings and insights that you have encountered insofar as on the law enforcement side, working with this particular crime.
I was just assigned in the WCPC in 2020 during the pandemic. And I've seen how big the problem is, especially when we talk about OSAEC. We are much like dependent on reports coming from our counterparts. And it helped us a lot. Those referred cases were really help us a lot, especially side is on the part of our foreign counterparts. We know our limitations. We have seen our limitations, especially as from the government side. When it comes to technology, the approach, the complicated part of the problem, wherein our limitations are really dependent on the resources that were given to us. So we really need the help coming from the counterparts from the demand side. So those were the learnings that we've seen. But we are very grateful for this study because I've heard about this study was a product of the survivors where we really wanted to connect. And we would like to let them know that we are listening. And we really wanted to lessen or really eradicate this kind of problem in the Philippines. Thank you very much.
Oh, it's really great to hear from you, Colonel Manalad, like really putting value and weight on the voices of our survivors. And thank you for openly sharing the limitations and the challenges of the PNP, Women and Children Protection Center, in addressing this crime. But we really commend you, Ma'am, Colonel, for your leadership, and of course our women and men in uniform who remain relentless in addressing this crime despite the challenges and roadblocks. Now I'd like to go to Ms. Ari of Kumu, and Ms. Ari, talk about how vital is the multi-stakeholder approach towards ending online sexual exploitation of children. And a primary or a very important contributor to this fight is the tech industry. So would you care to share some of your learnings or experiences, as a new player in the Philippine social media industry, and how did it look like for you, like in terms of protecting children in your platform?
So good afternoon, everybody. My name is Ari Kaderku, and I represent Kumu, and particularly on the tech digital media business side. When we look at, I would like to say sort of three major pillars of sort of how we got here today. And it really started in 2018 when some of our co-founders here in the audience launched our live streaming platform. And almost instantly, the need to control the supply of explicit content was obvious. And we had our co-founders, 4 people in a room. The moment we opened the live streaming platform for all Filipinos to essentially earn, we realized we needed moderation. And we built manually a team led by Ron here in our audience, who started really gathering the community, actually, the community of Kumu users to say, this is not okay. But over time, we still saw it. The supply, essentially, the supply coming on our platform, and we are a Filipino platform. We were catering to Filipinos, sharing that they could earn as fast as possible through entertaining online. And we saw instantly sort of that downturn, and we needed to control that. And so over time, building the community, building our own moderation teams, creating internal task force to review every single product feature we had, how safe it was, how was it able to control the quality of our content and the quality of the streams going live. And we're able to now take down streams within less than a minute of explicit content. And so it's a lot of time and investment that actually when you're starting a business and you have no money, it's a big effort to really say, okay, this is something that we're going to control. This is something that we're going to guarantee to the Filipino that we will create a safe platform. There's my bell.
Thank you for sharing your experiences, Ms. Ari, and of course the efforts of Kumu to protect our children in your platform. But a follow-up question.
Yes.
Did you encounter any challenges in the process?
Yes, lots of challenges. I mean, the sheer volume, we talk about supply. Supply is essentially Filipinos going online and creating content that is not appropriate. And when we look at children, Kumu identifies children as below 18. And particularly on our platform, you cannot stream below 13 without a parent guardian. And so the challenges here is one, detecting how old are Filipinos online, right? I mean, we're fortunate enough that Filipinos do look very young. And so we really have a combination of training AI, but also we need the manual reviewers to really check the content, ensure that there's either a guardian to make sure that this content doesn't go south.
Thank you so much, Ari. What really stood out from your sharing is that you identify that your platform has a responsibility, and even despite the challenges, you chose to lean into it and find ways. So thank you for doing that. I want to ask this question to Sir Angel from PLDT and Smart. Sir, your company has been one of the leading telco companies in the Philippines. I want to know more of your thoughts on what does private sector collaborating with the government look like, especially in responding to the issue of child protection. And just to push that a bit further, if we were to dream with you, how would you envision developing technology for good?
Good afternoon, everyone. Still difficult to digest the 500,000 children being trafficked. In our organization, PLDT and Smart, we have different approaches. So on the legal aspect, our legal team is helping. We helped in the crafting the new OSAIC law, and on the LGU level, we also help. I think we already helped 2 LGUs in crafting their city ordinances for anti-OSAIC. And I think 2 more is ongoing. And on the awareness campaign, our corporate communication is doing in a sustainable manner awareness to the community. On the technology aspect, that's where we come in, our group in cybersecurity. In 2021, we deployed first, on the policy level, it's a policy of PLDT Smart to protect children. There's a policy. And on the technology side, in 2021, we deployed our child protection platform. The child protection platform is able to prevent access to CSEM or CSAM on the content level. We used to do this on the domain level. But in 2021, when we were engaged by our corporate communication team, and it's not enough to block, because we saw CSEM or CSAM stored or published in legitimate websites, and we cannot block the website. So we need to block on the content level. So in 2021, we were able to do that. Today, we are blocking 700,000 contents already, and one more second, access attempts that we blocked already reach more than 1 billion. That's how bad it is, content level. And if I may use my next 2 minutes, we just tested our global chain of trust. It's conceptualized in such a way wherein the more partners we involve in the global chain of trust, we can easily alienate websites or sites that are storing, publishing, and streaming these OSAIC materials. No? So we already tested, and hopefully we can put this in production towards the first quarter or second quarter next year. That's on the technology side.
Wow, so Sir Angel, you're combating this issue at a community level, policy, and even on the technology front, being a subject matter expert, you yourself on this technology. What were the challenges and barriers that you've encountered? At least if you could name two main challenges that you've encountered in this process.
Our challenge now is in terms of fighting this crime. No? There's the blocking, we are already doing that. But we need more sources because we're getting our source of URLs from Internet Watch Foundation, the Project Arachnid of Canada, and we need more. No? I bumped into someone from Interpol the other day. I talked to him about it, if we will be allowed to block also what Interpol has, no? So we can do that. Identification, first investigation for the police. Our limitation right now is we are unable to identify the source because we are using translated IP addresses for the subscribers. So one public IP address will translate into 100 or even 1,000. We need to address that. And our approach there is the IP version 6 to address the IP version 4 limitation. No? But it seems that deploying IP version 6 is not just about our end in PLDT. Others must also do it. The websites, the web hosts must also deploy IP version 6. Right? So last year, we started thinking of other ways. We had the test done already, but we bumped into the data privacy issue. No? So at least we are trying to change our strategy to just identify the location and give at least a smaller area to work on for our law enforcement in case they will ask for that information. And finally, the identification of the perpetrator. Live streaming is a big problem, especially if the perpetrators are using the public platforms like Viber, Messenger, WhatsApp. That is something that is already beyond the telco capability to identify. We can do analytics, but we have almost 100 million users or devices. So it might not be sustainable. That's my second bell. Thank you.
Thank you for sharing about your challenges and limitations, Mr. Angel of PLDT Smart. And we're really highly encouraged and impressed, with the magnitude of, your efforts in combating this crime and, of course, finding solutions so that our children will be protected. Now, I'd like to ask Mr. Eric of AMLACAS or AMLACAS, since you're from the financial sector. The question is, how can we urge the financial industry to prioritize collaboration with the government? And from your experience, how have you been working with local authorities, when suspicious transactions arise?
First, I just wanted to make the comment that, when identifying these criminals, I think the financial services sector is the best place to identify them affirmatively. Right? To use the payment platforms, you have to identify yourself. You have to provide IDs, and in some cases, two. But in terms of urging financial institutions to do more, I think there needs to be the participation of included participation of law enforcement and the regulators, right? I think the financial services sector has always been the channel that has received a lot of attention to prevent all crimes. You know, when you pursue crimes, you always follow the money, right? So there tends to be regulatory fatigue, right? And I think specific to this crime, OSEC, and given its prevalence in the Philippines, it feels like just one of those other things. And to pursue that crime, I think there's inadequate guidance to advise financial institutions, what should you do? I'll give you an example. So the AMLC, through various partnerships with financial institutions, releases names of known offenders, right? Sometimes it's just a name. I might have the same name as an offender. I don't want to be blocked. So a financial institution struggles with that, right? And then when it comes to sharing information with law enforcement, so this is anecdotal, right? I haven't done the study, but financial institutions are always eager to help. But sometimes the requests are very broad. It is unclear how the financial institutions should share intelligence, right? And there are even cases where the financial institution will ask, where do I send the information? And they're given a Gmail account. So, you know, you can also see the hesitation of financial institutions. They have so many obligations, so many crimes they have to chase. If only it was made easier to focus on, first, how do you identify the crime, which we at AMLACAS are assisting with, but two, guidance on what they can and cannot do, right? Because you cannot just block a payment. You can perform more due diligence. Ask, hey, your name is different from, you know, the person receiving. How are you related? You know, these payments are small. Are you buying something? Because in the Philippines, when you send remittances home, it's to support families, right? It's not to send 500 pesos, 1,000 pesos at a time. So this is when financial institutions are like, okay, I need to ask more questions, right? But it always boils down to, okay, what can I and cannot do?
And that is like the type of like identification of roadblocks and even bottlenecks in the solution that calls for more discussion and collaboration between the private sector and the government. So thank you for bringing that up, Eric. And time again, we've heard in this discussion that it is really a shared commitment. It is a shared responsibility to be able to effectively combat OSAE. So, and also we want to hear more about the importance of community being actively involved in the solution. So I want to turn to Attorney Kit on this. Attorney Kit, can you shed a bit of light on how this might look like? We are aware that there is a reporting hotline managed by IACAT. Can you tell us more about it? And also, just to add in another question, how do you see pulling in the community into helping contribute to solution against this crime?
Maybe also just in response to what Mr. Eric was saying earlier, that they would like to have some sort of guidance. Actually, under the implementing rules and regulations of Republic Act number 11930, AMLC and DILG is supposed to create some guidelines in order to help assist or in order for the implementation of the duties of the PSPs. So they're supposed to create guidelines in identifying suspicious transactions that might be related to OSAI related activities. So if you will see in the IRR, the duties of the PSPs or the payment service providers there are pretty short. And that is because there are still guidelines that have yet to be issued that will be crafted by the AMLC and the DILG. So in response to that, to your question, we have the 1343 IACAT hotline. That's just one of the reporting channels that we have in order to report any trafficking cases, also OSAIC-related incidents. We also have our 1343 website, just in case that we can, certain people cannot go through the telephone lines. We also have our Facebook page, the IACAT Messenger. We have there, we have 24/7 people who will call agents who will then refer the case to the CFO. So they are the Commission of Filipinos Overseas. They are the lead agency in our Advocacy and Communications Committee. So they are the ones who supervises and oversees reports of OSAIC and trafficking cases. And it will then be thereafter be they will thereafter be endorsed to the proper agencies. So even if it's not a trafficking incident, even if it's just for assistance, legal assistance, they will be referred to the proper cases. They're not allowed to drop calls. So yeah, that's just one of the reporting channels. Another reporting channel is also through the barangays, our IACA task forces, our IACA secretariat. So the rationale there is to make the reporting as wide and as far-reaching as possible for any victim to be properly convey his grievances.
Wow, I think 2 minutes is not enough to just discuss all of the avenues and the reporting, ways of reporting to the IACA, to the government. So thank you for sharing that, Attorney Kit, and thank you to all of our expert speakers this afternoon. We learned so much from you and are inspired by your commitment to address this crime. But we also want to move forward and distill some action points on the practical side of things. And we'd like to go back to the recommendations, since we already know the problem, how big the problem is, but it's also good to focus on the solutions that we are looking at. So I'm going to go back to these recommendations. So first, there's a need to cultivate community-based reporting, implement national and local strategies to increase local community reports. Second, there's a need to enhance criminal justice response. Holding offenders accountable is crucial for establishing a stronger deterrent and reducing prevalence. We also need to implement robust community-based efforts, and additional local efforts are required to prevent, frustrate, and disrupt the crime. There's also a need to enforce the new anti-OSAIC law, particularly the tech provisions. We have to ensure tech companies use technology designed to prevent or disrupt live-stream child sexual abuse, including manufacturers of camera-enabled devices. There's also a need to expedite detection, reporting, and blocking of suspicious financial transactions. Private sector efforts are pivotal to gaining timely intelligence on suspected traffickers, supporting law enforcement intervention, and preventing abuse. And finally, demand-side governments should urgently pass online safety legislation with survivor consultation. Legislators should champion survivor experiences. So to all of our panelists, how do you feel about these recommendations? Is there anything that you'd like to tweak or raise, or how can we support you in addressing this recommendation? So probably we could start with Mr. Angel.
Okay. Good thing I prepared a list. For the first recommendation, cultivate community-based reporting. PLDT, we have a partnership with the CWC, Center for Children, Welfare of Children. And we launched the Makabata 1383 hotline with them. That's a platform for reporting and referral. CWC also awarded PLDT as best practice in combating OSAIC on the technology side. And in implementing the robust community-based efforts, we are very heavy in this aspect. We work with Safer Kids PH, for example, LGUs, the Barangay Council for the Protection of Children. So we have these efforts. And as I mentioned, the city ordinance on 2 LGUs, General Santos City and Angeles City for the OSAIC. And enforcing anti-OSAIC law tech provisions, since we are part of the group who work with the Congress, so we have our child safeguarding policy, the child protection embedded in our sustainability roadmap. So we report this on an annual basis, and embedded in our cybersecurity strategy. Before, there was no specific group that's handling this and helping the other units. Since 2021, my group, the cybersecurity operations, is heavily involved already. And of course, the concept that we are working on, the global chain of trust, no? And IPv6, we still continue to pursue. And we're trying to find new ways, just so we move forward even if we encounter hurdles in the IPv6 implementation. Thank you.
Am I next? Yes. Okay. I think I would like to, well, my area of interest is really around payments, around recommendation 5. I think I would break it down into 3 things. First, I would like to see MSBs and banks have a very specific policy implemented in their programs, in their financial crime prevention programs around OSAIC, right? And what are the procedures succeeding to disrupt or frustrate those receiving payment, right? I think that is the most immediate thing that financial institutions can do to make an impact in this, in combating this crime. So that is, it has due diligence, which Attorney Sam mentioned earlier. The second is I'd really like to see tighter collaboration between the financial institutions, the regulators, and law enforcement. I think everyone wants to help. Financial institutions want to provide information, but it's not clear to the different stakeholders how this information is flowing, what is appropriate for sharing. I just wish they would get into a room and hammer it out. And then I think the third, if I could make a wish, I would like to see, especially in the Philippines, OSAIC be a separate policy when it comes to combating financial crime, in the same way that terrorist financing is separate, right? At the moment, it sits under the realm of money laundering. Now, money laundering is cleaning the proceeds of crime. OSAIC, these are payments facilitating the crime. So there has to be a very different lens. And given that 500,000 children are affected by this just last year, that's a lot of harm. And I think it is an opportunity for the Philippines to innovate in this space, probably be the only country in the world to have a program specific to the prevention of OSEC.
So there's 2 areas, I think, in terms of recommendation where Kumu has really seen opportunity but can continue to grow. And I think the first one is the community. Without our community, I mean, the power of the Filipino community is quite strong, and particularly online. There's no shortage of the online Filipino community anonymously, keyboard warriors, sharing inappropriate streams. Within our own community, though. This is within our own app. But when it goes beyond that on other platforms, I think that's where the awareness comes in. I think cybersex, the terms that we are sharing in this room is actually quite familiar online. But in the community on a barangay level, it's very different. But what's also quite unique is this is happening probably outside of the Sofitel. You have to have internet access. It's not in the jungle somewhere where nobody can see. This is really your neighbor and within our own barangays. And so that community reporting and vocabulary is quite important. The second point is tech policy. We are a Filipino startup, quite small compared to our global live streaming competitors. And when we look at supply, or our creators, our content creators, it's actually quite easy to earn a lot of money if you go and start doing inappropriate things online. And to be the only platform and one of the smallest to say, no, you cannot do that on our platform, we lose a lot of creators actually all the time to our competitors. And they see the Philippines, our competitors see the Philippines as a supply of sexual online content because they can earn a lot of money. And the statement earlier where, yes, if you go show online, you can earn money is true. And it's really, how do we put policies against these global competitors coming to the Philippines and actively finding and building agencies to hunt and go into the barangays, find the women, the mothers, the aunts, the titas, the lolas, and convince them to participate in this act. We need policies against these platforms because they are just coming in here and treating us like BPOs for online space, and that's not okay. And so really working with the government to come up with policies for the tech ecosystem and these platforms and play in the right game is so, so important.
On the part of the government, I think what we need to continue doing is continuing discussions and partnerships. For instance, we held our first anti-trafficking in-person summit with the private sector, and we are so thankful that Kumu was there, PLDT was there, and we are able to open discussions, identify the gaps, the challenges, solutions. That's what we need to do because this is really a partnership. It's a whole of society approach. A lot of sectors are involved. One of them is the private sector. We have the LEAs, the law enforcement agencies. We have the child protection services. We have our prosecutors. So it should be a continuous discussion. This is an evolving crime. It's a borderless crime at that as well. So continued discussions in order to properly implement the law. I think in the part of the government, we hope that everyone keeps an open mind and be open to helping make this law work properly.
As for the law enforcer, this will be an opportunity, the recommendation will be an opportunity for us for our further interventions. And I thought at first before that we have good accomplishments, good number of accomplishments, but now it is an eye-opener that we have to still do some more, work some more, and accomplish some more. And we thank everybody, especially my co-panelists here, who is also with us in fighting this kind of crime. Thank you very much.
Wow. Yes, one more.
I'd like to mention the AI-generated CSAM that we've started to see already. And this is going to be another kind of CSAM animal, which is more difficult to control, prevent, or identify. So with this AI-generated CSAM, they can produce CSAM in highly scalable manner. Now without the need, all they need is a photo uploaded in the internet, and then out of that they can create a AI-generated child sexual abuse material. So maybe that's also one thing that everyone needs to be on the lookout. As for us in PLDT, we've started at least identifying how we can pursue this another issue in OSAIC.
Thank you so much. Wow, that wraps up our panel discussion this afternoon. I wish we have more time to really continue the discussion, but it's just also very hopeful to realize that even amidst the enormity of the problem, there has already been big wins in the past years. And Colonel Portia, the Philippine law enforcement has been doing amazing work already. And the scale of the problem right now could have been much bigger, much higher if we did not, your team, the Philippine government, did not put the work forward in the past years. So you are doing an amazing job. And just to, I have the task to synthesize all these great insights in 3 buckets. So what a difficult task, but one thing's for sure is that there is an urgency to accelerate how we respond to this OSAIC issue. But we're not starting from scratch. As what we have heard from our partners on the stage, the work of the Philippine government, especially law enforcement, the prosecution, and as well as the social welfare services in the past years has been a testament to the serious commitment of the Philippine government to combat this crime. We have also heard from Kumu, PLDT, and even from Eric from AM Lakas that how tech for good is not only a promise of hope, but is possible in very tangible ways. And I love what Eric tried to really pull out here. everyone is willing to take part and contribute to the solution. And collaboration does not only mean we're pushing and moving each other to action. Collaboration also means we're helping one another remove roadblocks and challenges and make it easier for everyone to contribute to solution. And finally, Attorney Kit really reiterate that this is a shared responsibility. This is a partnership. And I think that is very important because for us to win against OSAIC, we have to win together. We have to work together. So just an amazing insights from our panelists this afternoon. Thank you again, Colonel Portia, Attorney Kit, Ari, Eric, and also Sir Angel.
Yes, thank you. Great synthesis, Attorney Lucille, and there's so much wisdom there. So thank you so much to our panelists this afternoon. And so now that we are equipped with so much knowledge about this crime through the scale of harm study and how to respond to this crime, together, it means you and me in this room and all of those who are watching online, together we can move forward with greater determination and in the words of Colonel Manala, do more to protect our children better. So back to you, Amanda and Attorney Ralph.
That was a truly insightful panel discussion, and it's truly heartening to witness the collaboration among the government, private sector, and NGOs in efforts to safeguard our children. Now, as a parent with children exposed to the digital world, I find it really reassuring that tech platforms like Kumu, a homegrown live streaming media business, and internet service providers, particularly PLDT and Smart, the Philippines' largest fully integrated telecommunications, are doing incredible steps to combat the online sexual exploitation and abuse of children. And as you heard, PLDT and Smart have blocked over 1 billion user attempts to access child sexual exploitation materials. I mean, it's amazing, amazing.
It's amazing indeed, and it is also encouraging to hear from AM Lakas and the company's effort to ensure the financial industry is helping to protect children from online sexual exploitation. Indeed, addressing a challenge that's both deeply rooted in communities and yet transcends borders necessitates a whole of nation or whole of society approach. I'm also glad to hear about the work that our government agencies, particularly IACAT and PNP-WCPC, are putting into combating OSAIC. So thank you to our panel of experts for generously sharing your insights with us. I'm sure that the panel session has sparked additional thoughts and questions from among our audience members.
And now we'll be transitioning to our Q&A session shortly, but before that, a QR code will be displayed on the screen for you to access the summary report. Additionally, our friends from the media can find the official press release by scanning the other QR code. And if you're interested with speaking to our VIPs or IJM spokespersons later, please don't hesitate to approach Evelyn or Reb from IJM's Brand, Media, and Communications team. They'll be really happy to assist you.
So Amanda, we are now in the Q&A session and we have received questions in advance. Thank you so much to those who submitted your questions. We do have a limited time for this session, so we might not be able to cover and address all of your questions. That said, please know that you can continue to share your questions with us, and we will ensure to provide responses even after today's event. And to our online participants, you may send your questions via the comments. So let's begin the session. Let me ask the first question to Attorney Sam, actually. Attorney Sam, I think we have a microphone for you as well. This question is for you. Attorney Sam, the prevalence is quite alarming and high. What gives you hope that we can win this fight against online sexual exploitation of children?
Wow. I mean, I'm seeing hope here in this room. I'm seeing Ruby. I'm seeing all of you, right? I'm seeing, of course, our panelists. If there is one thing that really would stay with me is this crime indeed is huge, but we are here to end this crime. It takes really a whole of society approach, the whole of the Philippine society and the global community, to participate and do our share in ending this crime. And I believe that we are on the right track. There are significant markers in this fight against online sexual exploitation of children. The Philippine government has been achieving the minimum standards in the Trafficking in Persons report for 8 consecutive years. We just passed the anti-OSAIC law and the updated anti-trafficking law. The Philippine police, our law enforcement partners, have conducted rescues of more than 1,000 victims now and arrested close to 300 perpetrators. And we've heard, of course, from Colonel Manalad that they will intensify their efforts. And so, those are some of the markers that gives me a lot of hope. And I believe that this baseline of the prevalence of online sexual exploitation would truly allow us to understand the magnitude and extent of the crime. But also, 3 or 4 years from now, we will conduct the same study to measure whether, in fact, our interventions have made an impact. And just seeing you guys here, it gives me a lot of hope. So salamat po.
Thank you very much, Attorney Sam. So this second question is actually for Ms. Ari of Kumu. So one of our guests wants to know, how does Kumu ensure the safety of your live streamers from online sexual exploitation?
Great. What a great question. Actually, it's been in our DNA from the moment we launched our live streaming platform in 2018. There's a couple ways we do it. We work closely with our community, so we have active report buttons where community members alongside what we call our Kumu police can report anything that is against our Kumu policy. And we are able to take down these live streams in less than a minute's time. So that's anything from sexual exploitation of any live streamer or anybody who looks underage, to bullying and all of those other factors. But I would say those are the 2 largest. We also actively educate our creators. So we have over 3,000 creators who go live on our platform every day looking to earn money. These creators are there to earn a minimum of at least 40,000 pesos actually a month. And so we educate them on creating quality content. Again, it is very easy to go online, show a little bit of skin, and get money. But to go online and show your talent and be educated in that way is actually a lot more difficult, but there is an opportunity there. So our team does actively work with them to prevent. And then on the tech side, alongside with our legal task force and our own information security or tech security team, whenever we create new product features, we have a task force who goes through, checks the safety of this feature, how will it be used and or abused before that feature gets passed through our quality assurance team, tech team.
Thank you so much, Ari. It's amazing how much you're doing. I think so many companies need to really get in there and do that, grab it by the horns. We have a question for Dr. Imogen Fell. Can you share more about how scale of harm differs from earlier studies like the disrupting harm of ECPAT?
Thank you. So disrupting harms, just want to commend ECPAT, actually, Interpol and UNICEF, who ran the disrupting harm study. I think they really paved the way in terms of trying to understand more about child sexual exploitation and abuse. So in terms of differences in terms of scale of harm and disrupting harm, scale of harm is focused on a very specific form of online sexual exploitation. And Disrupting Harm is not necessarily a prevalence study, but is trying to understand what online sexual abuse and exploitation is. And so actually I think a collaborative, and almost these studies go hand in hand to give us a wider perspective of actually what is happening in the Philippines and in other countries too from a Disrupting Harm's perspective. But there are differences. As I said, Scale of Harm is very focused on a specific form, whereas ECPAD is an Interpol and UNICEF study. Disrupting Harms is a broader perspective.
Thank you so much, Imogen. Our next question is for Eric of AM Lakas. How willing are financial institutions to disclose to authorities those possible perpetrators considering the privacy law?
Quick answer is I think they're very willing. As I indicated earlier, the challenges tend to be around how the information is asked for. Right? If it is not a specific ask, if it is not clear who is asking, what it is for, that's when it becomes more challenging. And then when it comes to privacy, especially, I mean, the regulations are in place that there is some level of relief, right? If it is for the prevention of crimes. It's very different when we're talking about, a data leak, for example, right? Or some breach of data. In the financial services sector, if there is an appropriate need for the information, they're willing to provide. But again, I think the issue is really around the specificity of the ask.
Awesome. This next question, I think, is directed to Executive Director Keith. Ma'am, what has been, in your experience, the biggest development when it comes to justice response against online sexual exploitation of children?
Sorry, the biggest?
The biggest development when it comes to justice response to this crime?
Well, I think the lapse into the law of the Republic Act number 11930 is a milestone. There were already existing mechanisms in place to pursue or to prosecute these kinds of cases, but to make it a law in and of itself, to have it develop its own databases, to have its own task force, to have its own duties and obligations for private sectors, for the LGUs, and it's just for even the term psych, it's it's all encompassing. It tries to be as elaborate so as to encompass all the kinds of technological crimes that may be committed. I think that in and of itself is a win. It's now, since there's already laws in place, it's just a matter of implementing it properly. That's why we have to work together, basically. I'm the executive director of the NCC OSAIC CSIAM, so it's a new office. We're very thankful that IJM has been initiating very many projects with us, just like the VIDI circular, for instance, also with partnering with LGUs to come out with ordinances to suppress and to fight OSAIC. So I think 11930 is a very empowering, hopeful law, and it's just a matter of implementing it properly that we hope to do.
Thank you so much, Attorney Kit. That sounds really encouraging. We have a question for John. Can you share more about the latest technological development in detecting newly produced child sexual abuse images, including in live streaming?
So there's been technology for many years now, image classifiers that safety tech companies like Thorn and others are using to detect child abuse material, even images and videos that have never been seen before and have not been categorized by law enforcement yet. And so those are there, and some tech companies, global tech companies, are using them, but most are not. And that's why the online safety legislation is so important. More recently, there's been a safety tech company in the UK, Safe2Net, that has developed a tool called Safe to Watch that can detect and block live streaming of child abuse material in real time, even using the power of the device. So there's no need for a tech company to have moderators who are surveilling or watching people's live streams, but the software can be embedded into the app or into the device itself and can detect and block the streaming even without a report. So even if you just think about it as a disruptive or a preventative measure, it can actually be used. And it's very sophisticated. It was built in partnership with the Internet Watch Foundation, which helps to remove child abuse material from the internet. And so I think as you think of the scale of this crime, as much as we need law enforcement to do more and make more arrests, at the end of the day, you also need technological prevention to make it harder for offenders to commit these crimes. And right now, there is zero technological barriers on these video chat apps, especially the global tech sector where most of this abuse is happening.
Thank you very much, John. This next question is for Mr. Redoble of Smart PLDT. Sir, considering the borderless landscape of the digital environment, how can telcos and tech companies work together to protect children online?
Okay, I mentioned the global chain of trust. What we are going to do is to create a presence in every country. So, global chain of trust platform in the Philippines, another global chain of trust platforms in like Singapore, Malaysia, Cambodia, Brunei, and these platforms will communicate with each other in a real-time scenario. So every content or URL that is blocked in one country can easily and almost immediately replicated in the other platforms in other countries. So the more countries that we involve in the global chain of trust, we can alienate all these contents that are being peddled in the internet, or even live streaming addresses can also be alienated by this global chain of trust. So all telcos or ISPs and even companies in their own organizations, they can utilize this platform to prevent their employees from accessing, to prevent anyone using their network to access OSAIC-related materials online. So the more member countries we can involve, no? Although it's easier said than done because we need the, for example, in the Philippines, we need the NTC to mandate the utilization of this platform. But in terms of the testing that we have done in a controlled environment, the global chain of trust will address 4 objectives. Number 1, it will create a cleaner cyberspace. So not only OSAIC-related sites, but phishing, scamming, and other sites. No? And it will create a safer cyberspace for children, women, and everyone. And it will become faster in terms of response when we are able to help the law enforcement agencies and collaboration between the different countries that are member. That's how we envision to address the borderless capability of this crime. And so far, based on the testing, the result has been very positive, and we continue to do it. Maybe next year we can see it, the first platform in the Philippines, working for the Philippines, first country. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Another question actually for Police Colonel Manalad. Police Colonel, can you talk about collaborations, especially with our international law enforcement partners? And I think that's not a signal for Colonel Manalad, that's a signal for me that that's the last question I'll be asking, because it seems we've been asking a lot of questions. But to end this segment, Colonel Manalad, can you talk about international collaborations with our law enforcement partners and the value of continuing that and deepening that relationship in the fight against OSEC?
Since 2019, we have a great collaboration having the PICAC, or the Philippine Internet Crimes Against Children Center, with collaboration or with partnership with the different foreign law enforcement agencies, together with the local law enforcement agency, the National Bureau of Investigation, and the PNP under the WCPC. It was a good collaboration. We have accomplished a lot. The numbers were also, they have a good contribution to those numbers. We are not the only ones, or the WCPC or the NBI, who have done a lot. But through collaboration, we have made a very good accomplishment. Those who were with us is the UKNCA, the Australian Federal Police, the Netherlands Police, together with the other police agencies, and for the NGO, it's the IJM who really help us a lot. So we are very thankful, and we are looking forward for more years to be as their partners. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. And that concludes our Q&A session. Thank you everyone for your active participation. As Attorney Ralph mentioned, please feel free to share any additional feedback and questions. You can choose to email them to the same email that sent you this invitation, or reach out to anyone at IJM.
Yes, and we can now excuse our panelists. Thank you very much for joining us on stage. Again, let's give them a round of applause, please. Thank you. Well, Amanda, we've had some very thoughtful questions from our participants and received great answers as well from our speakers. But let me pause a little bit to acknowledge some of our guests who have joined us for this afternoon. We have representatives from IACAT, from PNP, WCPC, Ipsos Philippines. We have the Honorable Judge Percival Atinaha as well, coming all the way from Tarlac Regional Trial Court. Of course, we have members or representatives from the National Prosecution Service, the Office of the Solicitor General, the National Coordination Center against OSAIC and CSAEM, from the Australian Federal Police, United Kingdom National Crimes Agency, National Police of Netherlands, Homeland Security Investigations, the FBI, Royal Canadian Mounted Police, Germany Federal Police, and even from the French Embassy. And of course, Amanda, we also have several of your friends with us who have supported you in your awareness-raising campaign. So I'd like to acknowledge as well Vanessa Matsunaga, Micaela Lagdameo, Davia Lagdameo, and Nikki Valdez. Thank you all for joining us this afternoon. So Amanda, before we experience information overload, why don't we take a little breather? So let's welcome to a talent from Kumu, Miss Danielle Pauline Denum, who will give us a song number. So we would like to welcome on stage Danielle.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for having me. This song is for you guys.
Danielle, for that song number. Well, we've had some fantastic conversations up to this point, and our next segment will help crystallize everything for us. I would like to invite on stage Ruby to deliver a response on behalf of the Philippine Survivor Network. Again, let's help protect Ruby's identity by refraining from taking and sharing photos or videos of her. Thank you for your cooperation.
So hello again, everyone. So with all those information that we just heard today, I, as a survivor, believes that to develop an effective solution, we need to know how big the problem is. So hence, in attempting to protect the Filipino children from OSEC, we need to know how prevalent it is in every part of the Philippines so we can strategize and plan better. I also believe that what makes scale of harm even more important is that we get to also know factors which drives online sex offenders and facilitators to abuse children. Gain at least an idea who are the usual facilitators, common signs which indicates people might be doing this at their homes. In my opinion, as a survivor leader, we should derive a preventative concept or a system from the scale of harm results with an adaptable design. Then we should collaborate with the government and non-government organizations in implementing it. I think it is also important for OSEC to be heard more. The nature of the crime itself and the consequences, not only to prevent more victims, but also to be a tool in sending message to the abusers to stop doing what they do. Provide spaces and platforms for survivor leaders to lead in spreading awareness about it and think of creative ways in which talking about OSEC would not be hard for many, especially within the Filipino family. It could also be a way in removing the existing idea that talking about it is a taboo in Filipino communities. I might also be speaking here on behalf of my fellow survivor leaders, especially for those members of a Philippine Survivor Network. Such conscious efforts by conducting this study put us in a place where we feel that our voices are being heard on a different scale. So this is really important for us. From the result of the study, we as an organization would know how to work better with government agencies, respond to opportunities where we can use our expertise as people with lived experience to see an end to this crime. Now, my hope as a survivor leader advocate and also as someone who was part of this study is to see tech platforms perceive this truth with conviction and start investing more in creating or designing a safer online environment for children. I also hope that we just don't hear this very sad truth today, but we embrace the pain and allow it to move us into action. We make good use of anger that we feel towards these abusers and maximize whatever resources we have to ensure the safety of Filipino children. I also hope that this could lead Philippine Survivor Network. Salamat sa patuloy na pakikibaka upang labanan ng OSEC para sa mas ligtas na bukas ng batang Pilipino.
Thank you so much, Ruby. Your courage is truly inspiring. You have done so much in this fight, and you've made such a huge difference already. I'm personally honored that I got to work with you on previous campaigns. Everyone, can we give Ruby another round of applause?
Well, at this point, I'd also like to invite on stage Attorney Sam and Executive Director Magsaysay, Undersecretary in charge of the DOJ, of the Department of Justice. Ruby will officially hand over a copy of the Scale of Harm Summary Report to Executive Director on behalf of the Department of Justice and the Philippine government.
On behalf of International Justice Mission and the Philippine Survivor Network, and in behalf of all Filipino children, we would humbly like to present the Scale of Harm study findings to Executive Director Ikit Magsaysay, representing the Philippine government and of course the Interagency Council Against Trafficking. Our hope is that the Philippine government will continue and even intensify its efforts and lead us in greater collaboration, all of us in greater collaboration in ending this atrocious crime. And International Justice Mission and the Philippine Survivor Network fully commit our support to the government efforts, and hopefully the whole of Philippine society and the global community will do our share in ending this crime. We are going to shift the narrative from the Philippines being the global epicenter of this crime to being the center of the solution.
So good afternoon to all. In behalf of Undersecretary Nicholas Felix T., please allow me to deliver his message for the Philippine government response. The prevalence of online sexual abuse or exploitation of children and child sexual abuse or exploitation material has been a rising problem in the Philippines. Due to the rise of this phenomenon, the Philippine government had endeavored to pass a new law to address this with the enactment of Republic Act No. 11930 last 2022 and its implementing rules and regulations this year. A number of awareness campaigns, rescues, and policies were parts of the efforts conducted by the Department of Justice, or DOJ, through the Interagency Council Against Trafficking, or the IACAT. Some of the awareness campaigns done by the DOJ through the IACAT are the Barangay IACAT, wherein barangay officers and members tout local ordinances for their community that focuses on anti-OSAIC and CISAM. Capacity trainings are also conducted for law enforcement authorities and prosecutors to help them investigate OSAIC and CISAM cases. There are continuous rescue operations conducted through the Cyber Tip Monitoring Center against perpetrators of OSAIC and CISAM. The Department of Justice, through the IACAT, commend the Scale of Harm project developed by the International Justice Mission, as well as the findings and recommendations that served as the output of this project. The findings in this project can be utilized as vital guides for the Philippines moving forward. By using these findings as basis, we can effectively formulate programs, policies, and laws to address the problem at hand that is survivor-sensitive and efficient. The 7-point recommendations of this project can be used and integrated in the approach of the Philippines in combating OSAIC and CISAM. With the current efforts of the Philippines and combined findings and recommendations of this project, we can create a more comprehensive approach and strategy in ending OSAIC and CISAM in the Philippines. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Attorney Kit Magsaysay. And with that, we conclude our Scale of Harm study launch. My hope is for each of us to leave this event more driven than ever to protect vulnerable children. And as Ruby said, we are indeed stronger together.
A heartfelt thank you to all of you who have dedicated your afternoon today to joining us and learning about the findings and recommendations of the Scale of Harm study. While there is still so much work to be done ahead, as the prevalence estimates show, we are making strides together. Let's continue to work hand in hand to translate the recommendations into action and build a safe future for our children and the generations to come.
Well, thank you so much, Amanda. It's been an honor co-hosting this event with such a passionate child protection advocate such as yourself.
My pleasure, and thank you to Attorney Ralph.
Well, to close us out, let's hear a song from another Kumu talent, Justin Benedict Ruiz. And after that, please enjoy some refreshments at the buffet table. Thank you, everyone, for joining us, and good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
You're broken down and tired of living life on a merry-go-round, and you can find the fighter that I see in you. So we're gonna walk it out and move mountains. We're gonna walk it out and move mountains. And I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up, I'll rise unafraid. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. I'll rise up, high like the waves. I'll rise up in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. When the silence isn't quiet and it feels like it's getting hard to breathe, and I know you feel like dying, I promise we'll take the world to its feet and move mountains. Take the world to its feet and move mountains. I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. All we need is hope. And for that we have each other. And for that we have each other, yeah. We will rise, and we'll rise, whoa. We'll rise. I'll rise up, rise like the day. I'll rise up in spite of the ache. And I'll do it 1,000 times again. I'll rise up, high like the waves. I'll rise up in spite of the ache. I'll rise up, and I'll do it 1,000 times again. For you, for you, for you, for you. I will rise 1,000 times again. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Justin. That officially ends our program, but let me also thank our online participants, those who have tuned in to our live stream. Thank you very much. And of course, we would like to recognize the leaders from the Philippine Interfaith Movement Against Human Trafficking. Thank you for joining us this afternoon as well. As I mentioned earlier, we have refreshments prepared, so enjoy. Thank you and good afternoon.